Welcome to Production Value Matters, the business event podcast, brought to you by Byrne Production Services. Here, we explore the different ways business events can bring value to your organization, the latest technological advances in the event space, as well as providing you with actionable strategies to make a business event a success. Let's create an exceptional event experience.
Okay, hi, and welcome to another very special episode of Production Value Matters, the business events podcast. We are live on location at the Canadian Meetings and Events Expo in Toronto, August 2024. And I am super happy to have my friend Heather Reid on this show. Heather is an amazing event professional who many years ago got a little frustrated with the industry. And I'm paraphrasing your bio here, Heather, but I admire you so much because you sort of got frustrated with what was happening with the industry, with a lot of planners getting confused and frustrated with contract negotiations, and you shifted your career from being a planner yourself to helping planners with Planner Protect. So Heather, please tell the audience about a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into some questions.
So yes, as you said, I've been an independent planner since the dark ages.
Sure, yeah.
And really, you know, it's interesting. I come from an academic background and I kind of fell into the industry. So in '94, there really weren't a lot of programs for educating planners and things like that. So I learned by experience. But the very first contract I was handed was a convention center contract that was intimidating. And I started on this journey of learning. I didn't meet anyone else in the industry for almost 10 years. I worked in my little silo in southwestern Ontario. And when I heard another speaker talk about contracts, I went, oh my God, there's my person. But then it was another 10 years after that when I heard a planner say, oh, I didn't know you could negotiate force majeure. And I went, pardon? And I looked up to this planner and what I realized for a while, I thought, well, she should know. And then I realized there's no place to go to learn specifically. If it's not in school that you learn it, and at that time, there weren't as many programs as we have now, then it's not the planner's fault, right? There needs to be a source to be able to learn. Yeah. So that's when I said, all right, maybe I'll try and make a go of this. So I worked quietly for several years and really tried to get out there that contracts are foundational to everything that we do in this industry, and that maybe I could create a niche for myself. And then COVID hit, and that was a game changer. I was blessed to be in the right place at the right time with enough recognition to be known as the person to go to, to ask questions. And I think it helps that I'm a planner first. I've never been on the partner side of things. I have laser focus on a planner. But then during COVID, I actually went back to school and took the licensed paralegal course. So I spent a year doing a 2-year program. And so I'm a licensed paralegal with a really good understanding of law now, but I'm not practicing. I'm still a planner. So I don't give legal advice, but that to me now it's my path, really. It kind of started from, I was scared, then I realized there's a gap. Then someone said a pivotal comment about, I didn't know you could do this, and that was where it started.
Yeah, excellent. And so I'm totally cheating. I have the questions here. Right? So you recently launched Certified Event Contract Professional Program.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, I'd love to, and thank you for the chance. So the CECP, Certified Event Contract Professional, obviously people like to demonstrate their knowledge. And so there is an opportunity to really, for people that have come out of the programs, what I'm finding is that post-secondary programs don't spend near enough time talking about contracts. And again, foundational to everything we do. I find our industry really focused on the glitz and the glam. And that has to happen, right? That's what we're in the industry for. It has to happen. But the foundations also are core. And the foundations also change. And so this certification program is one to give those that invest in the program the credential to say, I am learned in the area of event contracts. I can speak the language, I can negotiate. It's not a be-all and end-all program. I'm doing this on my own with a team, right? But it's meant to fill a gap that, and it's then something that I hope the marketplace will recognize and say, okay, can we look to hire someone with a CECP? They're going to support our team with event contract negotiations that maybe somebody else doesn't have the passion for it but even if you don't have the passion, planners they're still looking at contracts whether they want to or not. Yeah. And so that knowledge is still really key. Yeah. So that's what I've designed it for. I'm getting towards the end of my career, and I want to take what I've acquired up here and really put it into a tangible form to leave a piece of myself with planners moving forward, and this is the best way I could think to do it.
I really love that sort of educational piece, and I'm gonna I'm gonna tell a quick story about when 10-15 years ago when I was working in this industry, and we pursued this massive client for a while. I mean, knocked on the doors, we tried to get them in. And I remember my sales guy, who was part of my team, came out to me and was like, hey, I finally got it. They said they're going to do it. And I'm like, oh, great. Let's get a contract. Let's get some insurance. Let's get all of this set together. And I remember the client coming back to us and like, we don't have a signed contract. What do you mean insurance? And that always shocked me. And I love the look that you just gave, right? Yes. And so I sort of equate that to, the call in general education for financial education. In high school and elementary school, because we have a whole generation of people who came out into the world not understanding how to balance budgets, not understanding how to look at that cell phone contract or whatever it is. And we have been a fledgling industry for 25 years, right? I remember when I started in this industry, and perhaps we started around the same time, that it was still an off the side of your desk task, right? It wasn't a fully fledged economic driver that it is today.
Absolutely.
And so there is that lack of basic education. As you said, when people are going through most of the education institutions, it's the glitz and glamour. It's here's how you deal with Kobe Bryant's going to be your keynote. How do you deal with Kobe Bryant? It's like, well, how do you write that contract? How do you understand the insurance requirements? And so I'm so glad that this is becoming sort of and I like how you've positioned it as the basis of knowledge. It is not like you're the expert, you should be hired by a Fortune 1000 company as their legal
that's
expert.
A huge, I mean, I hesitate to call myself an expert, and I always and it's 30 years in of learning. To me, it's a signal that you are a continuous learner, right? Like this program, I hope those that are going through it and those that will go through it will come out and say, I've learned how to critically think, because it's not about just ask like 5 questions to ask. It's like, okay, you get the answer to this question, but then it spurs 3 more questions.
Absolutely.
And then it spurs 3 more, right? And so it's not taking just the first answer. If you don't understand it, be willing to say, I don't understand, or go and find someone that does. Right? Like I think it's an empowerment as well. Planners, I've had many planners come to me over the years and say, like, can I negotiate this? And I'm like, hell yes.
You can absolutely.
You can ask for anything.
Yeah.
Whether you receive it and how you position it is very important.
Yeah.
But you should be able to ask for anything that is proportionate to what you're bringing to the
100%.
Partner, right?
Look, I have a particular perspective on it. Being a what we call a third-party production company. Even at this show, every once in a while we go, we got to use the in-house. We got to use the in-house. Like, no, you don't. You have the power to negotiate that, and I think that there is generally in the industry either a lack of knowledge and skill set to be able to understand, as I said, that base knowledge of. I think people should be coming out of George Brown or the university systems where they're learning event management and learning event design and production. Well, that should be the first thing that they learn. It's like you need to learn how to balance a budget. You need to some basic skills about meeting client expectations and stakeholder objectives, all of those things. And you should be generally versed in the legalities of what you're doing.
Right.
So,
but would you find that appealing as a young person? Probably not, right?
Well, I'm a particular type. I
am too.
Yeah,
I am too.
for sure.
But I think for most, they're drawn to what we perceive the industry to be, which is the shiny things and the great opportunities and the opportunities to enjoy incredible experiences.
Sure.
However, I do agree with you, not faulting any current system, but it has to. I think the more that we have advocacy for the professionalism of our industry, I think there is a lot of room for improvement. And I'm surrounded by amazing who I look up to that I wish they were doing the same thing, talking about their experiences and things. But I think we have to get back to the core basics, like, as you said. These are the things that really give you the good grounding. And then the glitz and the glam and that sort of thing are the icing on the cake. But it's about risk management. It's about serving people and being safe with food service. It is about accessibility and making sure that every single person, you don't know who might want to cross into the threshold of your event. Are you prepared for every single person? It really is those should be what we really focus our time on, and then get to.
Well, it's the end then that I think I'm concentrating on, which is. So, look, when I went to theater school, which is I got my education. I learned to coil cable. I remember sitting in a shop. We were building sets, and the sets looked amazing. The gigantic dragons and smoke, and fire, and the whole thing. But I spent 6 weeks in a metal shop cutting little 2x2 inch square bits of metal with a screw hole in it because we needed 500. Right? And so that's the way I see that sort of that understanding of the legalities of this is contract law, this is financial management, this is risk management. And get the boring stuff into your brain so that you can go and do the cool stuff. Yes. Right? Absolutely. And that was the point of it's a conservatory education in theater, right? You go and you put your hands in it, you do some theory, but you put your hands in it and then you do more theory, and you don't touch a show for 2 years out of a 3-year program. It's only in your last year that you're actually producing the shows. Okay. And I valued that education so greatly because it gave me a huge understanding of the economics of putting on a theater show. And by the time we got into actually producing, Peter Pan was the big show that we at the end of my conservatory. All of the logistics end of it, paperwork, all of the reporting expenses and balancing a budget and liability and the notices I was supposed to put up in the theater, all of those things, that was a muscle memory. So I was able to open my brain up to, well, what if we made Peter flip right there, right? And what's the engineering that goes into that? And so if we take that different approach to education and say, you're if you're going through XYZ University for event management, and it's a 2-year program, your whole first year is understanding the back end and the legalities. Then when you get into second year, you can decide what you want to do. Do you want to be a cool event designer? Do you want to be, a producer? You want to be a hotelier and hospitality? Whatever that is, then split you off that way. I think, anyway, so that was my little rant about that. I should actually get back to some questions. So contracts always have these really embedded clauses that can either benefit or be detrimental. Could you discuss a few key clauses that every event planner should scrutinize before they're signing?
Quick answer is all. There shouldn't be a word that you don't really consider, because at the end of the day, and I'll get back to your question, but at the end of the day, sometimes the biggest differences are just the 3-letter words the difference between will or may.
Yes. Nice.
Right? It's the nuance of words that are very purposely chosen by legal counsels that are providing the contracts, that they're very strategic in the words that they choose. And so my message is that, yes, we need to understand the big force majeures. Very, very important. And we've just, planners that have been in through COVID, we know the importance of that one now. Cancellation, all 4 perspectives of cancellation need to be in there. Rarely is there only but the one, and that is if the group cancels on a partner. But there's other perspectives. Then third-party suppliers, as you said, so where you are, being able to proactively negotiate how you can work with third parties so you have choice when it comes time to execute the event. That starts with requests for proposals, and then it moves into contract negotiations. And I have probably 13 different steps or questions to ask about and contract for to work with third-party providers in a venue, for example, right? And it's because at the end of the day, what we want to allow at the contracting stage is flexibility. I find a lot of planners may not have paid attention to that at the front end, but then are finding incredible limitations, restrictions, financial, constraints, if you will, because then they feel like they don't have a choice. And so to me, that begins with the RFP, laying out your expectations, laying out that you want flexibility, that you need flexibility, not want, you need flexibility.
Need it, absolutely.
And then in that contract, making sure that that language is in there so that it's not open for interpretation. I think one of the big things about contracts too is the person that's negotiating them on both sides of the table may not even be involved at the time of the execution of the event, right? And so you may have great intentions on both sides, but if it's not there on paper, how do we know, right? It really needs to be.
And do you think I think a lot of event planners think that it's an either or black and white situation, they go in and they say, well, we can't give up this or that, or and it's one of the things we advise as a production company, whether or not you're going to use the in-house as part of the solution.
Yep.
And not to pick on them, because I'm sure, it's
fabulous provider, absolutely.
Yeah. But there are concessions that can be made.
Yes.
There are sort of little gray areas to say you can do X but not Y, and what's more important to you, right? And for a lot of planners out there, or at least anecdotally, what I've always encountered, is the general session super important. You need that to be like a high level production value. And again, I'm tooting my own horn what I'm doing here, but we always advise our clients okay, well, get the concession that you need for that room, right? You can give up a lot for the rest of the building, where it's not like you don't have Simon Sinek coming in as your keynote to the secondary plenary. So let's negotiate with that. And I don't know. And my question, I guess, to you is about: do you think it's a lack of knowledge or a lack of confidence that comes in the event planner or organizer when they're coming into that situation and not realizing they have that gray area and that wiggle room?
I'm going to say it's a really good blend of both, because I think there's Julius Solaris put out a statistic the other day that 70% of our industry are new to the industry.
Yeah.
That's scary.
It is.
Scary. And so I think there is an innate lack of awareness, which we need to work really hard. Those of us that are long in the industry really need to work hard to make sure that they are empowered and know. But it's also, I think it's a lack of awareness, and it's a lack of empowerment. It's a lack of confidence to say, no, I am the client and I need this to ensure the quality of my product. And I have trusted partners that help me deliver that message. The client owns the message, and anything that relates to that message should be at the desire or the ability for that event to choose that messenger, right? And so if it is your main room, but I would say as a planner, I wanted one cohesive group to deliver the whole event. So, even giving up the option of having to do breakout rooms with another provider is kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you want to know that everything is covered and there's one less area for something to slip between the cracks, right? So I think it really does come down to core knowledge and someone saying to you, ask, and then ask again. and then ask again.
So you've said that for clients, there's strategic contract negotiation.
Yes.
Can you share a particularly challenging contract, that negotiation, how you navigated to secure that kind of saving?
Absolutely. I had two examples come to mind. I had a client come to me. They were, and both examples actually are with convention centers, which are, they are typically owned by, other like city or whatever they're owned by. But I find them a little bit more challenging and a little bit more rigid. But there are also ones that are very, very willing to make changes. But two particular situations. One group had been canceled by a property because of protesters, the threat of protesting. And so this group wanted to be proactive in their language with the convention center to say, look, this is we don't want you to cancel because of the potential for protesters. If you do, because in the prior situation, they'd really been left with no recourse, right? And so they wanted to be proactive. And so it was interesting. I was on a Zoom call with them as a client, and the venue came to the call with their legal counsel.
Really?
And I'm like, but at the end of the day, we actually got what we wanted because I was able to explain. It wasn't because I was on the call. It was because I was able to explain in terms that I felt were speaking somewhat of the legal language, to be saying, this is why the client is so focused on this particular language being in the clause. And so that was a huge win for the client. It gave them peace of mind knowing that they're not going to put all of this work into this event and expense, and then because of a fear that a venue would cancel. So, I mean, and that's an exceptional, there's not a lot of protesters, but it speaks to the fact that you have to be able to talk the language of the person on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
You need to be able to speak.
I love that aspect of this process that is about the human connection and understanding and having a conversation.
Yeah.
Because I think some of that intimidation for negotiating those things comes in the writing, right? So you get this massive 40,000 page document.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I do one a year.
yeah, for sure. But you get this massive legal document that's got a lot of numbers and a lot of language on it.
Yes.
And then you're communicating, like everybody says, give me writing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely value to that.
Yes.
But I got to tell you, the best success that I've ever had working on behalf of clients to help them negotiate those clauses is to, yes, I'm going to send an email saying, hey, I have some concerns about X, Y, Z. I'm going to put that in writing, but let's get on a phone call.
Yes.
Right? And that sort of eye-to-eye contact and the empathy that can be created in saying, this is why. This is why we want this way.
And then I'm going to say, Matthew, and then you back it up with confirmation in writing.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Because those agreements can be made, but then they're not reflected in the end product.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's another part, is that we always have to be, like, the very final version. I know for myself, you get exhausted of looking at the same document. But you have to follow through and make sure that every negotiated change is in that final product before you sign it. So yeah, get it in writing. But you cannot replace relationship, or you cannot replace like a one-to-one genuine, this is why. Yeah. And so the second example I was going to give you was, again, we had a situation where the client, I had reviewed the contract, and I mean, I'm picky. I get that, and I'm probably a lot for people to. But it's with a genuine interest in protecting the client, just like the partners have had legal counsel protect them. I'm not legal counsel, but I know what I'm looking for. But the client was, the response to that was, pick the top 3 things. And then that was going to be the end of the day. And it was like, whoa, we genuinely, as a client, want to do business with you. We're not going to just choose 3 things. There's so much about a contract that is important. And so that was a process in persistence, maybe a little stubbornness, to say, no, these, like, so much more than just 3 things are important. So I think, but I'm not sure that I would have been able to do that 25 years ago, 20 years ago, right? With my little world of experience, like my little world of experience. So I feel for planners that if you don't necessarily have a deep knowledge, and then you aren't feeling like you know exactly how to talk to them. So, yeah, I don't think it's for a lack of desire. I think it's for a lack of, we're not setting up planners to be really empowered to negotiate.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, it goes back to that education piece that we talked about at the beginning, which is, setting up our industry to succeed and to come to the table with meaningful insight. And you and I are on the same page about that, so I won't argue it too much. So dealing with large-scale events versus sort of smaller events, is there anything specific and critical that needs to be considered by somebody negotiating a contract?
That's a good question, and I think smaller events are just as risky and need to be risk adverse as large ones, but there's certainly layers of, you probably in a larger event get more into security, and you get into more, do you have medical, like what are health and safety and what are emergency evacuations and things like that, right? Like there are another level, but I would say that smaller events can't just cross their fingers and, right? They still need to come and have good clauses, because at the end of the day, there's still, if you don't have a good contract to come back to that has the recourse proactively negotiated, you're left with in the moment and what you're offered, right? And you have no leverage at that point. So definitely there are differences, but at the end of the day, I think every contract has the same kinds of risks. The ability to be sued, damages, you're not meeting financial obligations, that sort of thing, whether it's small or large scale. So
yeah, I feel like, the expression we use in our office is it's the small ones that get you, right? And so like every once in a while we'll have a meeting with the team, they'll stand up weekly. We'll say, hey, we're working on this big mega show in Vegas or whatever. And, I got to think about that. I got to think about that. And I'll always draw attention to the smaller show. I'll say, because it's the small ones that get you. The same level of detail that you have to have on that show, you have to have on that show. That's 2 speakers and a DJ, but it's the small ones that get you,
absolutely,
right? And so, that sort of same base knowledge is really important.
Yes.
And that same level of detail. And to me, it's almost like working out, right? It's the difference between the big game and working out, right?
Yeah.
You're going to give all your effort. It's the big game. You're going to do all the cool things. That if you approach your workout, which you do for 30 minutes, like once or twice a week kind of thing, just to keep yourself up to speed, right? It's the little ones that get you. And you'll stretch for that big game. You'll get mentally prepared. I do that same preparation for when I'm doing 20 minutes on a bike, right?
I think if we prove ourselves with smaller events and mid-size events, then we're positioned well to handle additional responsibilities with large-scale events, right? And I think that I agree. Mine were small to mid-size, right?
Sure.
But I'm not sure I would feel ready to execute a large-scale event because there are additional things that I did not encounter with my association clients that were, pretty germane. But yeah, I agree that there are definitely additional risks, but it's additional. It's not in place of.
Yeah.
That core stuff is still core.
Yeah.
And then you have some additional concerns on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so where do you think people can go, other than Planner Protect, is awesome. Yeah. But what resources are out there, do you think, for event professionals to go and start to dive into their education and get that confidence and knowledge?
Absolutely. Right top of mind, I just had a fabulous conversation with HopSkip, which is a site you can go in and prospect with sites. And I'm sorry, HopSkip, I should have said it better than that. However, they are helping with site selection and facilitation. They do a series with 2 lawyers, hospitality lawyers. They're free. It's incredible. Sign up and spend the hour and listen. There are PCMA, MPI offer education. Get involved with your association events. Invest. Even I've been self-employed for the 30 years, and so I've invested my own business money. But to me, if this is your real career, if your employer doesn't invest, it's your own professional development, right? 100%. Invest your own, invest in yourself that you can then take forward. So there are lots of places to get education, and free if you need it. But yeah, industry associations are great. HopSkip, I know, does one. Event Leadership Institute has great sessions as well. So there's no lack of places to get education, but it's making the time and making it a priority, I think, is, and that might be a chore if you're not really wired to, to be
continuous education.
Crazy,
Yeah.
a crazy continuous learner like me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's part of the role. Things are changing every single day. And for us to be relevant and to be informed and to be useful to our employer or to our clients, they are expecting us to be up to the moment.
Great.
That's our responsibility.
Yeah, I've always put it as, talking about continuous learning, so we are craftspeople. Like, yes, we are, and this is what I love about this business, to be honest. As I said, I have a theatrical background.
Right.
I grew up in the arts. It's storytelling, it's creativity. I love that. I don't work in the arts because, and I do work in events because it's a perfect blend of that creativity and artistry and storytelling and building cool businesses, right? And helping our clients build a business and helping myself build a business and everything. And so as a crafts person, that's how I don't call myself an artist. I call myself a crafts person. And as a crafts person, like any other crafts person, I have to practice my craft.
Absolutely.
And yes, the cool stuff, which is the stuff in the pictures behind you, like it's cool lights and stuff, but it's also like business systems and operational systems. I have a project manager in our team who plays a video game about logistics. And he will rave about the spreadsheets that he has while playing a video game. I don't get that myself, but he's a particular person. And so I think we should all encourage everybody in this industry that anytime you have 5 minutes, and it's not 5 days, it's 5 minutes, right? Of spending some time on a commute, or hey, I do this when I travel, right? I'm away from my family, and I got nothing really to do outside of rehearsal time for the big show. And yeah, I could go out in the town and have a bunch of drinks and party with the team and all that. But I go back to my hotel room. I grab whatever podcast, whatever book, whatever new business leadership thought process, whatever it might be, and I dive myself into it. Because I'm sitting in a hotel in Vegas. I might as well do that instead of gambling. Don't gamble. Don't gamble. Okay. So could you... So we always like to wrap up these episodes with a practical tip. And I'm gonna put it toward, because we're talking about education, towards young professionals coming into the industry. And to pick on Julius's post, 70% of our industry is new to this industry over the last 20 years. So what advice would you give them as a practical step after listening to this episode to start their journey on understanding contracts and negotiations better?
A couple of things come to mind, and one is ask. Absolutely ask. Do not be afraid to ask. Another one is fake it till you make it is not a legal strategy. That just doesn't work. It does not work. And find people in the industry that have been through stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
With it, battle scars and all.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yesterday in my session, I asked for people that have been in the industry for more than 15 years. And there were a lot that were 0 to 5, and then there were a lot that were 15 or more. And I said, look at each other. These are the people that you need to find and to tap into. Probably a lot of us are more than willing to share experiences and lessons learned. And so if you are new in your career, we're a friendly bunch. We are a people industry. We love people and we love being with them. And I feel like most of us are really willing to share and to say, yes, I did learn this. Now, we may not give you like tactical things because we've all
I'm not giving you my
stripes.
business plan,
right?
But I'm going to tell you some war stories.
Exactly. Like, like I'm often asked, can I pick your brain? And I'm like, yes, but I will share what I've learned through it, or the outcome. And so, but I think ask is the most important. I have a dear friend who is a salesperson in an entirely different industry. And he said to me many, many years ago, he said, you need to ask, and then you need to ask again. And literally, you need to ask again.
Absolutely.
Right? It is not about just taking the first answer given to you. So if you're young in your career, be willing to ask. And it's about awareness. It's about when you're negotiating. It's about your own education. Is this setting me up? Is this advancing me? So there's lots of reasons to just ask. I personally don't think that saying I don't know is a bad thing.
I love the words I don't know.
Yeah.
I like, look, as a young professional, I had that,
Yes.
I want to know, and it took a shift in my mentality. And that's, advice I give to young professionals all the time. Like, I don't know is fine.
Yeah.
I don't know means I have an opportunity to learn, or I have an opportunity to solve a problem. All of these things, it's an opportunity. I have a young 12-year-old who gets very upset that, like, I don't know, Dad. So, you know what? You're not supposed to know. You're 12 years old.
Yeah.
And that's an opportunity for you to learn.
Absolutely.
So, I love the words I don't know, because it gives us an opportunity to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right?
And then on the flip side, reactively saying I didn't know is not acceptable.
Oh, yeah. That's unacceptable. I don't again.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
No, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And it'll have legal recourse, or it'll have financial recourse, or it will have logistical recourse, right? All of those things.
Yeah.
I didn't know does not do you any good.
No, absolutely. And I'll just close with one little anecdote of that exact moment. And this is very early in my career. I had some spreadsheet that I was doing labor calculations for this gigantic show. And instead, and I was young and very inexperienced, and I was trying to balance it all out. And instead of saying, I don't know how much labor we actually have allocated to this, I waited until I had to say, I didn't know that there was a mistake in the sheet, right? And I thought, oh, well, they'll understand, because I was like, I just didn't know, I'm sorry. And they were like, not good enough. And I never worked with those people ever again, and good on them for never hiring me to do that again. There's a hard lesson to learn. And I'm glad I learned it when I was in my early 20s. And so, I love that. I didn't know is unacceptable. What I don't know, could save your ass.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
So Heather, thank you very much for joining us. And obviously, people can find you at plannerprotect.ca.
Correct.
And thank you again for joining me. I always love talking to you. It's just a good conversation.
I enjoy it too, and you've made this very easy process, so it's cool.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Matthew.
Production Value Matters, the business event podcast, is brought to you by Byrne Production Services. To find out more about Byrne Production Services and how putting on events can drive value for your business, visit byrneproductionservices.com. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And on behalf of the team here at Production Value Matters, thank you so much for listening.